But we're going to go ahead and get started. And today we are going to be talking about slope. You should see an assignment posted for you in Google Classroom. I'm going to see if I can pull up the introduction and we get started on sharing that. So let's see here. Hopefully you can see this. We're going to be talking about slope today. So I know we were looking at graphing last week. We started with intercepts, but this week we're going to be moving on into slope. So what is slope anyway? We can see here, if you plot 2 points in the coordinate plane and then you draw a line through the points, a straight line, that straight line has slope to it, okay? Because slope is how steep or how flat the line is. So you can see this blue line, it has some steepness, so there is a slope to it. So slope, steepness, same thing, okay? So it says it here, the slope of a line describes how steep a line is. But technically, slope is the change in the y values divided by the change in the x values. So we have our regular, just kind of talking and explaining definition, steepness, and then we have the mathematical definition, which is change in y divided by change in x. So if we look at this example, we had the point 32, which is right here. Hopefully you can see that. See if I can mark it for you. There's the point 32, and then we also had the point 58 right here. And you can always determine the slope from any 2 points. You just need 2, okay? So these 2 points are on the line. We need to determine the change in y, that would be in this vertical direction. Change in y up and down, how far up and down do we go, divided by the change in x, which is how far left and right, that's your horizontal direction. So if I go from the green point to the orange point, straight up and down, that would be, look, we can count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces up to get from the green point to the orange point, okay? And if we want to find out how far we had to go across in the x direction to get from the green to the orange, we went straight across 1, 2, okay? So this is why we have what we see here. Change in y is 6, change in x is 2. You divide those two numbers, 6 over 2, to get 3, all right? So that's your slope. That is how you calculate the slope. Anybody have a question? Put your question in the chat now. If you have a question on that, let me know in the chat now. Okay, let me clear that out. So let's look at this one together. It says use the graph below to find the slope of the line that goes through the point 1, 2, which we can see here. 1, 2, red, and then the point 6, 6, which will make purple. Okay, I strongly suggest when you're doing this to draw a triangle. Draw the triangle so you can only count vertically and horizontally. You do not want to be counting on the diagonal. It will be wrong if you do that. So definitely draw your triangle to show how far up you have to go to be in line with the next point and how far across you have to go to be in line with the next point. Okay, draw your triangles. All right. The formula said change in y, which is your up and down, that will be our red line, change in y divided by the change in x. So put in the chat for me, what is the change in y? How many spaces did we have to go up to get from one point to the other? How many spaces up? That's y. Or you can say, how long is this red line I drew? Put your answer in the chat. How long is the red line? What is the change in y? Okay, we get 4. 4 for the change in y. We're going to do the same thing for x. This time x is your distance across, how far left and right you had to go to get from one point to the other. Or you can say, how long is the purple line? That's our change in x. Give me that in the chat, please. Change in x. Okay, very good. Change in x is going to be 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this really is our slope here. When you divide them, okay, 4 divided by 5, we're just going to leave it as 4/5 since it doesn't reduce. So just leave it as a fraction, 4/5. Okay, that is your slope. Right? Who has a question? Who has a question on that? Type it in. Yay, okay, got that one correct. Any questions, guys? Questions? All right, let's move on here. It says, notice that both the lines we've looked at so far have been increasing or have had a positive slope, okay? That means if you were looking at the graph going from left to right, starting on the left side, you would be walking up the line, okay? Same thing here, up the line. If you're reading from left to right, that makes the slope positive, okay? Increasing or positive. Same thing, okay? Let's look at the situation when the slope is negative. That means you'll be going down from left to right. So you look at the picture here. Going down from left to right this time. It's already labeled for us. So let's look at an example here, okay? Use the graph below to find the slope of the line that goes from the point 1, 9, which will be red, and 4, 0, which is going to be purple. Okay, notice my first point, the one to the left, is higher than my second point, which means I'm going to have to go down to get to it. And if I'm going down, then it's going to be negative. Okay? So I'm going to draw my triangle. I believe we used red for our vertical distance last time. So we use red for the change in y. Notice, look at that. I had to go down to get in line. And then we'll use purple for the change in x. Okay. Right, in the chat, tell me what the change in y is going to be. And notice if you go down, you have to put a negative. What is the change in y? Change in y. How many spaces to go down from the red point to get in line with the purple point? Okay, I count 9, right? We went down 9 spaces, so that will be that will be a -9 for the change in y, -9, okay? All right, in the chat, what do we get for the change in x? Change in x, and as I'm just going to the right, change in x, what's the distance or the length of the purple line? Put that in the chat. Okay, 3, very good. So we have -9 over 3. If we can reduce, we will. Can we divide -9 over 3? What do we get? What's -9 divided by 3? -9 divided by 3. Good, 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 good. So the slope is -3. So we can simplify that, -3. Who has a question? Who has a question? Type your question in the chat. Type it in the chat if you have a question. All right, very good. We got that one correct too. Okay, so math has this kind of problem where they like to give the same topic a million different names, right? So slope is one of those things that has several different ways we can talk about it, and it all means the same. So when we just introduced this topic just a minute ago, we said change in y over change in x. That's correct. There's nothing wrong with saying it that way. It's a lot of words to say, but that's just how it is. Now, if you want to say it in a shortcut and not say so many words, you can call it rise over run, but it's the same thing. So rise is the shortcut for change in y. You just say that one word, rise, okay? And run is the shortcut for change in x. So we could change this to just say slope is rise over run. It is the same thing. They're not two different ideas. I'm not going to show you another way to do this. It's the same thing with a different name, okay? You can choose how you want to say it. You just need to know, no matter what way you see it written or you hear it said, you need to know they're talking about slope, okay? Who has a question? Anyone have a question about rise over run? Anyone have a question about rise over run? Here it is again right here. This will be a good thing to put in your notes. Slope is change in y over change in x, or rise over run, same thing. Questions, anybody? Okay. We have just about 6 minutes left, not much time. There's some practice here, but I actually want to get into the practice that looks like your assignment. Remember, you have slope from a graph as your work for tonight. Right here, I'm gonna bring it up. Due by midnight, slope from a graph. We're gonna do a couple here now while we have a few minutes left. Before we get started, if you're interested in, or if you need an extra help session, please see that link in the chat. I've been posting it. I'm gonna post it again now. Link in the chat to sign up. I'm gonna do an extra help session tonight at 8. So sign up at the link you see in the chat. And if you sign up, then I'll email you the link to the meet, because it'll be students from all the classes, not just this class. So if you need that on this topic or anything we've discussed in the past, if you've been confused on anything, if you have old work that you need to make up but you don't know how to do it, click that link to sign up for an extra help session tonight at 8, okay, if you need to do that. I'm gonna try to do that every Monday. So at least today and next Monday before we go on break. If you need that extra help, take advantage of it, okay? All right, so this looks like exactly what your assignment is going to look like that's due today. If you've already done it, wonderful. I know some of you guys work ahead. You saw me post it Saturday or yesterday and you jump right in before the lesson. That's fine, but I'm gonna go over it anyway, okay? So slope from a graph. Notice this kind of looks a little bit different than what we saw a minute ago because it doesn't have the points like given to you that they want you to use. See that? That's okay. You have a choice now. You can pick any points you want. So you want to pick what I call pretty points. These are points that are on the blue line, of course, but they're in the corners of those little boxes in the background. You guys see those grids in the background right here? Like there should be a bunch of squares this size in the background for you. It is a pretty point if it happens at the corner of a box. Excuse me. So it needs to be on the corner of a box. It's like that. That's a nice point because it's in the corner of a box and it's on the blue line. Understand? You need to pick two pretty points. So here are the two that I chose. Okay, so there are two pretty points. Then remember, you need to find the change in y or the rise, which we've been doing in red, and then you need to find the run or the change in x, which we've been doing in purple. Okay, now, is the slope going to be positive or negative? Put in the chat, is it going to be positive or negative? Think about it. We're starting up here from the left and we're going down the blue line. Is that slope going to be positive or negative? It's going to be negative. Yes, it's going to be negative. Notice my red line is going down. Since my red line is going down, I always start from the left point. Just like we read in English, left to right. I'm starting at the left point. And to get to the right point, I had to go down. So I'm going down to, oops, that should be in red, excuse me, down to over 1, 2, 3, 4. So -2/4, or I can reduce it and get -1/2, okay? But that's my slope. You have a question, guys? You have a question? I think it's trying to give me a hint, but I don't need their hint. Do we have a question, anybody? Okay. Good. We have like a minute and a half left. Let me try to do one more. And then we're gonna dismiss today. So once again, pick two pretty points. And you can pick any two you want. It doesn't matter if somebody else picks something different than you. That's okay. Okay. Red, my left point, purple, my right point, and I'm gonna start left to right. So my change in y or my rise. Oops, my lines look bad, guys. Rise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do it with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is my rise, positive because we're going up. And my run, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now simplify. What do you get? Put that in the chat quickly. 5/5 simplifies to what? What's the slope? Okay, if you got 1, you are right. Very good. All right, guys, that's it for today. Make sure you do your assignment for tonight. This very activity I'm doing right now, do it midnight. Also, if you need extra help, sign up at that link. Have a good day.